I hope it's holding, huh? So, thank you for coming to this short press conference, press briefing. We just finished the session with High Representative Mogherini and Foreign Minister ZARIF. We touched on the Iranian nuclear deal from last year. That was a major diplomatic breakthrough, where these two played a crucial role, as we know also from media. We discussed in depth the situation in Syria and how to break the impasse. We also had a chance to discuss the sectarian violence and moving forward in Iraq. The Oslo Forum has become the annual meeting for peace and reconciliation and people working in this business. And this year I was very pleased to have both my colleagues here. They have done tremendous work and walking the talk in this field. So I think we are ready to take some questions. I don't know if you want to give a couple of initial thoughts. If not, Frode, you're the boss.
First question for Reuters, please.
Yes, hello. My name is Tina Jacobson. I'm from Reuters. I have a question on Trump's speech after the Orlando attack, where he said that immigration from countries with a history of terrorism should be suspended. And I guess what is your reaction to this? And I guess this goes to all of you, as even Norway has a history of terrorism as well.
That was a clear indication. I do not comment speeches or positions expressed in other countries' electoral campaigns. What I can tell you is that in Europe we are very much aware of the risks that our own societies, our own citizens in some cases, put to the security of our citizens of our country. And that we have learned over the past months and years to separate well the issue and the challenges that managing a huge refugee and migratory flows put to our institutions and societies, with the primary purpose of protecting people's lives and also saving lives at sea. And the threats that some European also citizens put to their fellow citizens in Europe. So the fight against any form of terrorism inside Europe is taken extremely serious, as it is taken extremely serious our duty to properly manage the challenge of migratory and refugee flows. But we keep these two issues completely separated.
I think in a globalized world, where emotions are global, where people have access to the internet, where unfortunately the extremist groups are using the social media in a way to attract followers from disenfranchised groups in all societies, where you have people beheading innocent human beings in Syria and Iraq speaking French and English with a perfect accent, I think looking at immigration is looking at the wrong address if you want to fight with extremism.
And I have full trust in the U.S. Electoral system and in the U.S. debate that these kind of comments will also be commented from other U.S. players. I align myself with what Madam Mogherini said, that Europe, we will make sure that we handle the migration according to our values and principles. Our values is that we do give protection to people that need protection. But we, of course, in the current circumstances, have to step up surveillance and also have to step up what we're doing in intelligence, sharing intelligence, when we are facing this kind of violent extremism and radicalization that we have seen also on European soil, in Brussels, Paris, and Copenhagen. But we will handle this according to our own values and principles.
Norwegian News Agency.
My name is Federica from Norwegian News Agency. I have a question for the Minister and also for Mogherini. Question is, in your opening remarks before you talked about avoiding maximalistic positions, the need to define problems in new ways in order to find solutions. I want to know what changes could Iran make to its positions and approaches in Iran and Iraq to contribute to peaceful solutions, and also I'd like to hear what Mogherini thinks Iran could contribute to play a constructive role, and what it should do and not do.
In Syria and Iraq?
Syria and Iraq,
Yeah.
sorry. Thank you.
Well, I think we need to agree that there is no military solution in any of these cases, although there could be a military component where you need to defeat extremists. But even for defeating extremists, you need more than a military strategy. You need a comprehensive strategy to dry up the sources of new recruits for extremists and the sources of new financing. We have presented a plan for the resolution of the crisis in Syria. We are prepared to engage in serious discussion within the ISSG so that we can at least try to articulate a future prospect where is amenable to solution, as I said in my opening remarks, rather than as a recipe for stalemate. Of course, at the end of the day, this is the job of the Syrians and the Iraqis to own and lead the political process in their countries. But we can, in fact, facilitate. We cannot dictate, but we can facilitate that, and Iran is fully prepared to engage in that. We should not forget the humanitarian side. The humanitarian situation in Syria is disastrous. We need a comprehensive humanitarian solution. There are areas under siege by the extremists, and you can hardly find any address. So it is important for everybody with any influence in Syria to come together in order to assist in the humanitarian relief operation, and Iran is prepared, as in the past, to do its part.
In my view, the role that Iran can play, especially in Syria and Iraq, can be essential. We sit together in the International Support Group for Syria, and what we expect from Iran is that it follows up all the commitments that we took together, as we do expect the same from all the other members of the International Support Group for Syria. Which means, first of all, guaranteeing or helping, facilitating the work for allowing humanitarian access to all besieged areas. Here, we in Europe do not make distinctions. To us, the basic principle of humanitarian aid, it has to reach all people in need, no matter of what kind of political or military dynamic they're trapped in. And we are the ones that, together with the United Nations, are trying on the ground to bring those humanitarian tracks inside besieged areas or difficult to reach areas. And we invite Iran to facilitate this access everywhere Iran can influence. In this respect, obviously, the same goes with others that have influence on other parts. Also to facilitate the full respect of the cessation of hostilities we agreed upon, and to exercise its influence for the political negotiations to start significantly in Geneva. This is what we not only what we expect, but also what we work on together with Iran, with others in the support group. We really believe that it is high time to put an end to this war, first of all, for the sake of the Syrian people.
Okay, I see we're running out of time, but we'll try 3 more questions if we can collect them. Iranian press first.
I am Samadi from Iran TV News Agency. My question goes to Her Excellency Mogherini. and I think I will ask the question in French.
Ça va? I thought in Farsi. That is beyond reach for me.
Oui. Après le jour de mise en œuvre de JCPOA, tout le monde attendait les actions des deux parties, c'est-à-dire l'Iran et le 5+1. L'Iran a accompli ses obligations. Tout le monde sait, vous avez annoncé déjà que l'Iran a accompli ses obligations, mais malheureusement, on en voit que chez la deuxième partie, ça marche très lentement. Par exemple, sur les affaires bancaires et économiques, on n'en voit pas de procureur remarquable. Tandis que selon le JCPOA, tout le monde a obligé de faire ses obligations simultanément. Ma question, c'est précisément que pourquoi les banques européennes ne travaillent pas avec l'Iran? Est-ce que ce n'est pas une rupture de promesse, à votre avis?
You want to collect?
Yeah.
AFP, please.
Pierre from AFP. Actually, my question is a bit of a follow-up from my colleagues. It goes to Mr. Zarif. I was actually wondering, how satisfied or dissatisfied are you with the pace at which Western sanctions against Iran are being lifted, and there were like some elements about banks being mentioned in the previous question. And I was also wondering what you expect out of your meeting tomorrow with Mr. Kerry. I understand that you would be meeting here tomorrow. What do you expect out of it?
AP.
Yes, Mrs. Mogherini, you were speaking earlier about the importance of the European as a diplomatic force for good in the world. If Britain leaves the European Union in a few weeks' time, how do you believe this will affect the diplomatic power of the EU? And we've seen, Mr. Zarif, the role that the UK played as well during the nuclear peace talks. How do you believe this will affect or how do you believe this would have changed the relationship with these negotiations had the UK been outside of the EU?
That's a whole other question. We'll take a few more. Let's try to collect. Ms. Gradal.
It's a question for Mr. Zarif. You said in your speech this morning that you said that those who use extremism for benefits, then everybody loses in a conflict. So what do you say to the fact that Iran is supporting Shia militia in Iraq, who has been using quite extreme methods on the ground in Iraq? And which role do you see for the Sunni population in Iraq, which is crucial to solve the problem in Iraq?
And finally, Dagla.
What do you see as the main obstacle to progress in the peace talks on Syria now? Slowly.
That's a host of questions. Good luck.
I start? You
Yeah.
start?
You go.
On the UK, I would not speculate on an if, but I will let, as it is natural and normal, the UK citizens take that decision before any kind of speculation on the future. But what I can say today is that the UK is contributing to a great extent to the European Union foreign and security policy. All the features of our common foreign and security policy are highly determined also by the UK contribution. That is vital for us. Would you allow me to answer in English? Great, thanks. It's much easier for me. I take the two questions together. All
Your French is stellar.
all nuclear-related sanctions were lifted on Iran as of 16th of January, so on implementation day. And in particular, all EU nuclear-related sanctions were fully lifted. Not only, but we are very actively engaging with the business community and with the banks in Europe and elsewhere outside of Europe to encourage engaging in Iran. I was myself heading an unprecedented delegation of 7 commissioners, plus me, to Tehran a few months ago to open channels of cooperation between Iran and the European Union on different fields, from transport to energy to science and technology, and economy and business. And I can share with you one data, which is that in the first 4 months of this year, trade between Iran and the European Union increased by 22%, only in 4 months, related to last year. So we know very well that there are challenges, and we are addressing this in trying to explain to our banking system as much as we can, in the clearest possible terms, all the things that are today possible for them to do that were not possible before, so that they gain confidence and they accompany this renewed engagement and relation. It will take probably a little bit of time, but already now we are seeing developments in the right direction. And I can express here with the strongest possible tone the fact that Europe is committed to make sure that the Iranian citizens can benefit from the lifting of the sanctions that the Iranian deal has provoked.
Okay, I have all the difficult questions. On the UK, I usually don't interfere in the internal affairs of other countries, so I've decided the citizens of the UK to make the decision. Certainly, UK played an important role in the nuclear negotiations, both when we negotiated with just E3 in the early 2000s, as well as when we had E3 plus 3. It was an important role that they played, not all the time to our liking, but it was an important role they played. On the banks, I believe it is important for everybody to realize that an agreement, an international agreement, will be sustainable if everybody feels that they are making gains from the agreement. That if we believe that JCPOA was a win-win agreement, its implementation must also be a win-win implementation, so that everybody feels that there are benefits, there are dividends in implementing that deal. And I believe the United, while on paper it has removed all the sanctions, the psychological remnants of many years of sanctions are still there, and I believe the US needs to take a much more proactive role in removing these psychological remnants. And I had a good discussion with High Representative Mogherini this morning. I will have a discussion, as I've had in the past many months, with Secretary Kerry tomorrow morning. And he has stated time and again, as they did in the statement that was issued in Brussels, under the leadership of Federica Mogherini, that they're committed to implementing their part of the bargain. We need to see that in action. As they say, the proof is in the pudding. So we need to see, particularly the Iranian people need to see the implementation of sanctions. On Shia militia, we reject any excess by anybody. We believe that any sectarian action is dangerous, has many difficult and disastrous global implications. It won't be limited to one locality, and that is why we have always called for cooperation among various Islamic sects, as well as dialogue and cooperation among various cultures and religions. As you know, Iran proposed in the latter part of the previous century dialogue among civilizations, and we proposed in 2013 World Against Violence and Extremism. So we do not differentiate. Anybody who's taking action against innocent human beings, from our perspective, is not acceptable. There are excesses everywhere, and we reject it. But what is the focal point is the response to what we see globally as extremist tendencies. On Syria, I think everybody has talked about a political solution. We believe we need to work for a political solution, but I think the first requirement, prerequisite for a political solution, is for everybody to abandon the illusion that there can be a military solution. And I think that illusion is yet to be abandoned by some.
I fully agree with the latter. If the military conflict continues in Syria, the losers will continue to be the civilians. Because if one part gets an upper hand and there is a proxy situation, the other groups will get additional support from outside. That's why we have to deal with this in a collaborative way, and we have to agree on a new constitution for Syria, where all groups are represented and feel ownership to the government in Damascus. Also on Britain, this question wasn't raised to Foreign Minister ZARIF and myself, and you know that on UK and the Brexit, this has been a very frequent question asked to Norway, because some of the people that want to leave the EU in the UK are pointing to a kind of a Norwegian model with the EEA membership. And I then usually say that if Britain wants to leave the EU, where Britain has a lot of influence today, when things are being discussed around the table on directives and etc., and to go into a situation where they will be still a part of the internal market, but then implement the directives without formally being around the table. It's of course up to Britain to make that assessment. But we have vast experience in doing so we can happily share that experience. But for us, there is of course no alternative. 80% of our export goes to the EU, and we will continue to be a part of the single market, but we are not part of the decision-making process. That's the way it is.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.